Thank you very much, Nidhi. It's very nice to be with you all again. I hope everybody is safe and well during this difficult period. And I know India is going through some challenging times, so my thoughts are with you all. Um, I often do games in the workshops that I've been doing in India, and there's no doubt that it would be a lot more fun if we were all in the same room and able to play these games together. But I'm going to do my best to talk you through some of these as well as I can today, and we're going to play a few of them with some of our participants, I'm sure. The games I'm going to be looking at today, I don't know, apologies, my screen's now stopped sharing itself. Excuse me, I'm just going to stop this and start again. I don't know why it does this. Still not working. Apologies, everyone. I have not. Why this happens? Go back to this. There we go. So the games that we're going to be looking at today can be used for warm-up at the beginning of a class. They can be used to practice points of English that you may have taught. They can be used as a simple way of bringing in some revision. It's also very important to remember that playing a game, children and students will perceive a game as being fun, but actually what you can do is use them to help build confidence, particularly for speaking English. And they're a good way of getting children to think in English as well as speak in English, because some of the games are quite quick. So you haven't really got time to work in a translation mode, translating from your mother tongue or thinking in your mother tongue and then trying to give an answer in English. You've got to be very spontaneous. So they can be really useful in a range of ways, and they fill up if you have a blank in your lesson or a gap, or you finished the lesson 5 minutes earlier than you'd anticipated. They're a good thing to drop in. So what I'm going to be focusing on today are games that do not need a lot of preparation. I know that a lot of you are very experienced. I think my colleague Payal has been doing workshops on games in the primary classroom recently. And I know there are lots and lots of games that we can all play that take a lot of preparation. We have to prepare cards, we have to prepare bits of paper, we have to prepare all kinds of equipment to play some games. What I'm trying to focus on today are the ones that you can think, oh, I've got 10 minutes. Let me just put in this little game that revises what I did at the beginning of the lesson. So we're focusing more on quick things that we can do without a lot of preparation and equipment. So we're going to start with a warm-up. Can anybody work out what this word is? This is an anagram. These are quite useful little games. What's this word? Send me the answer in using the chat box. Okay, any answers, Shrikant? Saturday, yes, brilliant. Great. Here's the next one. Any answers?
One second, Elaine. I think we are facing a bit of a technical problem here. So just give me 1 minute, please.
Sure.
I'll just, yeah, thank you. Just 1 minute.
No problem.
ఒక సాఫ్ట్వేర్ డెవలపర్ ఒక సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇంజనీర్ ఒక ఐటీ
Hi all, we are experiencing a technical issue on Facebook. However, we'll do our best to resolve the issue, and I think Elaine can now continue. Thank you. Hello. 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 Okay.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Yes?
Yes, Elaine.
Great. Brilliant. So I saw that everybody got this one, tablet. And then the last one that I have, this one. What's this? Shrikant, can you read out some answers?
Yes. Water.
Absolutely. So anagrams are a very simple little game that you can give to students to practice vocabulary. They're good for revising vocabulary sets. They're good for checking spelling. You can play them against the clock, of course. You can put children into teams. And they can work at any grade. And they can be more challenging. So there are ways of using games with anagrams to challenge more higher grade students with their vocabulary skills. It doesn't just have to be a game that's reserved for young children who are starting to learn vocabulary. So this is an example of how you might give a child a page. This is from the Collins Junior Illustrated Dictionary. There's a page of feelings that are all illustrated. You might give a child that page of vocabulary to learn, and then you can do a game with anagrams when they come into school the following day or a week later to see which ones they've remembered, which ones they've learned, by giving them a closed subset of words to use in the game when you set them little anagram checks. This one is a much harder one, so this is one that we might give higher grade students, and this is around synonyms or near synonyms for the word slim. So not only does the student have to decipher the anagram, but the student has to decide where in the diagram the words would go. Because as you know, there are words for slim that are maybe fairly neutral in connotation, and there are words for slim that are negative in connotation, and words for slim that have a very positive connotation. So this is a way of making it much harder. So use your chat box. Can you identify the 3 words that would be positive for slim out of these anagrams? You have to decipher the anagram first and then think about its connotation. Is it positive, negative, or neutral? Can anybody spot
Slender.
the positive ones?
Lean.
Slender, skinny, lean.
Well, it's interesting because slender is definitely positive, but skinny isn't. Skinny has a negative connotation. So if we were going to complete this chart, skinny would be one of the words. I think skinny's, fairly neutral. We'd put skinny in the neutral, and we'd put lean in the neutral, and we'd put thin in the neutral. But in there, we can also find the word gaunt, which is definitely negative, and spare, which is negative, and bony. And we have slender and willowy and slight, and those are all positive. So we can use an anagrams game with older students and higher grade students to do more in-depth looking at how vocabulary is used. So we're using the game to not only check that they know the words, but that they understand the connotations of the words. And of course, we can use anagrams in a simple way with very young children. What are these words?
Numbers.
Can anybody recognize any of these? Yeah, these are numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, second, last and first. So we can ask children to decipher these words when we're teaching them around maths vocabulary. And there are other things we can do with this. If we wanted to make it a bit harder, we could ask them to put the words into alphabetical order. So we've got children deciphering words, we've maybe got them doing it against the clock as a race, and we've maybe challenged them a bit further by getting them to put the words in alphabetical order, or to group the words by connotation. Obviously, alphabetical order is something we can test through little games that are races like this. So let's put these into alphabetical order. Which one comes first? Use your chat box to tell me.
So it's blue.
Blue, and then
Green.
no, colour comes next. Blue,
Green.
colour, green.
Blue, color, green. Color.
Yeah. Blue, colour, green.
Color. Lilac.
Lilac.
Yes. Yellow.
Oh,
Orange.
orange. Lilac, orange. Red,
Orange,
yellow. Yeah?
Yellow. No one is given red as of now.
No. Well, it should be blue, colour, green.
So
Lilac, orange, red,
someone
yellow.
says red, white, yellow.
white, yellow. Yeah. Okay. And of course, if you can make a game like this harder by asking children to think about the second letter. These all start with A. So here we have to be looking at the second letter. So let's have a go at this one. Which word comes first?
Is, about, add.
No, it's about, ace, add.
Someone says it is about, is,
About, ace, add. What's next?
add, and the fourth.
Age.
Age, yes. Someone has written all,
Yeah.
and ask.
All and ask at. Great. And we won't do this one, but this is looking at the third letter. So again, we can do this as another little game as the third letter to help reinforce alphabetical order with young children. I want to spend a bit of time on this game because this is one of my favourite games. It's a really, really useful game. And you can use this to revise or practice a wide range of basic concepts at a wide range of levels. It's called Noughts and Crosses in the UK, Tic-Tac-Toe in America. And I think everybody will know how we play this game. The aim is to make a straight line with either your crosses or your noughts. So it's a very, very basic game, very, very simple rules. And we can play this in different ways. We can divide the whole class into two teams, and this is how I play it in workshops. Divide teachers into two teams and get one team to play against another. But if you do that, it can be noisy and the children can get very excited. Or you could divide the class into smaller teams, or you could ask children to play in pairs using a piece of paper. But there's a wide range of ways that we can use this silly little game to practice quite a lot of English, including grammar and vocabulary. So this little version of the game, and I could make these up forever, I could spend hours doing this. This little version of the game allows us to see if children can know their alphabetical order, but we're playing it in a game environment. You can see I've put the letters of the alphabet into each square. So if a child wants to go in the middle, they have to tell us what comes after the letter I. So what comes after the letter I?
Waiting for answers. J.
J, absolutely. So let's say the next child wants to go for the letter A. What comes after the letter A?
B.
B, absolutely. So it's a very, very quick and easy little game that we can play to check the order of the alphabet. This is the same game, and again we've put the words into the grid, so the child has not much choice about where they want to go. If they want to play bottom right, they have to give you the plural for enemy, and they have to say the word, and you can make them spell the word. And if you wanted to make it harder, or if you're playing with older children, or you want to make it a little bit more challenging, you can ask the child to give you the word used in a sentence. So let's play this one. So who's unmuted? Soumya's unmuted. And Shrikant, could you unmute Anuj for me, please?
Can you unmute Anuj?
Okay, so Anuj and Soumya. So Soumya, you can go first. Which word are you going to play with?
Foot.
Foot. So if you could give me the plural, feet. Great. And I'm going to draw a little grid here. Okay, excellent. Right. Anuj, your go.
I think Anuj is muted, but Abhinandan is up.
Okay, Abhinandan, your go.
Okay, child.
Child. And the plural is?
Children.
Brilliant. Lovely. Soumya, your go.
Tooth.
Tooth. And the
Teeth.
plural is teeth. Brilliant. Abhinandan, your go.
Woman. And the
Yep.
plural is women.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Can you see this?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Take a good look.
Yes.
Where are you going next?
I think I'll go with enemy. Enemies.
Okay, brilliant.
So I get hoof, and the plural is hooves. So
Brilliant.
I get it right.
You win.
Yes.
Yep, Abhinandan, you win.
Yes.
Brilliant.
This is very interesting.
Cool, right.
So a very simple game, but you can see there that what Soumya did was she was picking out words she wanted to answer, but probably because she couldn't see my bit of paper, she wasn't aware of
Yes,
how Abhinandan was sneaking ahead. So we've used this to test irregular plurals. Now we can make it harder, and we can make it even more targeted on testing speaking skills, practicing speaking skills, by just putting a number into the grid. So the child has to not only identify the word they want to play with, but they want to tell you where in the grid they want to go. So you'll have seen that with the previous version of the game, I was saying, Soumya, which word? And she was saying enemy, and she said enemies. So great, but not much speaking. But here, I'll say to Soumya, which word, Soumya? So pick a word for me.
Take.
No, on this next one, can you see? We've got run, cry, and have, take, do, read, speak, find.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. 5 take. To get it. Okay, sorry. 5 took.
So 5. So you want to go into square number 5.
T-O-O-K. Yeah.
Which word do you want to play with? It's a verb. You've got to give me the past tense this time.
I would took. T-O-O-K.
Took. T-O-O-K.
Yeah.
So you see that involves quite a lot more discussion. The child has to say, please, miss, please, ma'am, I'd like to go in square number 2. And I want to use the word speak. So they're having to say a lot more. So as well as focusing on testing the past tense of the verbs, they're having to say more. So Abhinandan, which square would you like to play in?
I would go for square number 1, and I choose the verb speak. The past tense is spoke, S-P-O-K-E, in square 1.
Brilliant. So you can see that we're getting children to speak more. And they're probably not aware that they're speaking. They're busy playing a game. They're thinking about where they want to go. So that we can make this a little bit more challenging in that way. This is another version where we're practicing the parts of speech, this time to get an ought or across. Students have to tell you if the word is a noun, a verb, an adverb, or an adjective. And with this one in particular, it's really good to get children to use the word in a full sentence so that we can be sure they've understood and that they know what words like noun, verb, adverb and adjective mean. I don't think we'll play this one, but you can see we've got sister, which is a noun, like, which is an adverb, or a verb. So if there's an option, as with like and with pretty, because pretty can also be a verb, you can take more than one answer. It depends very much on what you've been teaching. You can devise these to suit what you've been teaching. And you don't have to play with a closed set. You don't have to give students or children a set of words to use. We've been practicing colours. We had a little alphabet game with colours earlier. So this time, to get a naught or a cross, students have to give you a word for a colour, but they have to think of the word themselves. Let's play this one. Abhinandan, you can go first this time. Which square would you like to go in?
Square number 2.
Square number 2. And can you give me a colour?
Red.
Red. Brilliant. So this is what we've got. If you can see that, Sonia?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Right at the top.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yep, right at the top. So where are you going to go?
I'll go with square 5, and
That's fine.
I would choose the color yellow.
Yellow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we've got now. I found a marker pen, which is a bit
Yes.
brighter. Abhinandan, where are you going?
I'll take square number 3, and
Yeah.
I'll use the color green.
Green. Brilliant. Soumya, your go.
I'll take the square 1 and the color black.
Okay, brilliant. Abhinandan, where are you going?
So I have to choose the square 9, and I use the color blue.
Blue. Brilliant. Sorry, Soumya, he's beaten you again.
Has he? Oh.
He's beaten you again. Yeah. So we don't have to give children the vocabulary. We can use more open set words and see what they know and test. This is another version where, to get a naught or a cross, students have to give us a sentence using one of these verbs. In this case, we want students to use the verb transitively. As you know, lots of verbs in English can be transitive or intransitive, but we can use little games like this to check out basic sentence structure and transitivity. This is one of my favorites. I do lots of workshops in India, and one of the things I find students struggle with is how to make uncountable nouns plural using structures such as cup of, slice of, bottle of, piece of. And often I will be in a workshop and we will be looking at a word like coffee, and we'll say a cup of coffee. That's uncountable. It's the cup that is uncountable. The coffee in that sentence is still countable. And there's a lot of confusion about these kinds of structures, I find, with students and speakers in India. So we could play this game where we're practicing structures such as cup of, so cup of coffee, slice of cake, piece of bread, to get students to practice some of these structures that I find are quite tricky. So this is one that I think is potentially really useful. I like to play this version with teachers and with students. And we can even use this game to look at collocations. Collocations are words which go together and that work together, that you find often in sentences and paired up. And this is clearly around scientific vocabulary. So nuclear power, electrical appliance, digital camera, staple food, electronic equipment, plasma screen. You can see we've got students practicing collocations. You might do a lesson like this when you've been pre-teaching some vocabulary for particular purposes. If you're teaching students vocabulary to be able to write an essay on what I did in the lockdown, for example, or on virtual teaching, then you can use a little game like this to practice collocations. And here's another one. So fossil fuel, average temperature, carbon dioxide, solar, where does solar go? Solar radiation, greenhouse effect, water vapor. You can see we can use this silly little game in a wide range of ways to test little bits of vocabulary, little bits of grammar, students' understanding. It's really useful. You'll all be familiar with a game called Bingo, where we match a word with a picture. And this can take a lot of preparation if you want to prepare a card like this one with a tree and roots and flower and rain, or ones with numbers on, 1, 2, 3, 4. That can take a lot of time. But of course, there are ways that we can get children to actually do the hard work for us. So let's imagine that we've taught our grade 1 students numbers 1 to 10. We ask them to draw a grid with 6 spaces in, either get them to write the number or to draw little dots for the number. And then you've got the children have made the grid, and you can use that as a way of practicing the vocabulary. You read out words, numbers 1 to 10 at random, and see which child ticks their box, ticks all the squares in their grid first. And you can make this harder. You can bring spelling into this game if you write anagrams of numbers 1 to 10, which is what we've got here. We've actually got 0 to 10 here. If you write these on the board and tell the children to write down 6 sets of letters into their grid, and then read out the words in random order. Students have to unravel the anagram to identify the word called, as well as ticking off. So it makes it a little bit more time consuming, but it's more challenging and allows us to test more things with the vocabulary. So a version like this, we're just testing their passive understanding. A version like this, we're testing their understanding and also their spelling. So they've got to concentrate a bit more as well. So there's more concentration skills needed for this version of the game. Okay. Word searches, lots and lots of books of these, but you could make them up yourself. This is one I've made up for colour. So you can make up word searches fairly quickly and easily on the computer, and teach, revise, practice vocabulary sets that you may have been looking at in class. Teachers often ask me for games to practice sentence structure, and this is harder. These are not so much fun as playing noughts and crosses. And we can, of course, practice sentence structure, noughts and crosses, give the children a verb, get them to give you a sentence. That's practicing sentence structure. But this is a quieter game where children might write. So you give children a model sentence to copy, and they only have to change one or more elements. So, for example, I like to eat apples. So, Soumya, give me an example where you're changing apples for one of those pictures.
I like to eat dosa.
Dosa, yeah, I do too. I'm really missing dosa at the moment back here in the UK. So it's easy. We can make it easy. Now, games like this that seem easy may be too easy for some of the students in your classroom, but they can be quite good for those students who may be struggling with their sentences. They've got a very tight structure that they're working within. We can make it much harder, or we can test different things. So I like to eat apples, and we change the object of the verb eat. I like singing. We practice those tricky ing forms. This would be particularly good if you've been looking at vocabulary around hobbies. I like playing tennis. I like singing. I like playing the piano. I like reading, where you've got different hobbies that are expressed in different ways. Playing something, or just the verb. Reading, cooking, baking, helping my mum. Then we can practice negatives. We're only changing the object of the verb like, but we're practicing a negative. I do not like. At the weekend, and we can look at talking about the plural using the present tense. We can look at using the, again, at the weekend, Anita likes to play with her brother. So talking about the future, talking about what we do in a customary way or habitually using the present tense. So we've got lots of different things we can do, although it's not a very exciting game. And we can give students a theme or a topic, and this is where it can become more game-like. What I did at school today, or a starting sentence. Preeti has brown hair. Students need to answer the description. Last Sunday, Rajiv decided to go and visit his cousins, and students then need to describe what he did on the visit. You can turn this version into a little bit more of a game if you put students in groups, and I'm sure you've all done this, and get each student to write on a piece of paper, and then they turn the piece of paper over, pass it on to their friend, and their friend writes another sentence. Turn it over, pass it on. So this was me playing against myself yesterday, and when I was making this. Last Sunday, Rajiv decided to go and visit his cousins. He got to their house at 11:30 a.m. He played football, they watched a movie, they ate pizza, they played video games, they ate laddus, and then he went home. So I wasn't very inspired yesterday, but you can turn it into more of a game and encourage more creativity and imagination. Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes now to look at speaking games. And this is where I would like my volunteers to be unmuted. So we said we would have Abhinandan, Nagna, Rageshri, if you're happy, Manjari, Payal, Soumya, Anuj, and marketing. If you want to join in, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. Shrikant, Nidhi, Preeti, it's up to you. So everybody will be familiar with this game. I went to the market and I bought. My guinea pigs, are you familiar with this game?
No.
No, not
No,
really.
no.
No?
No.
Oh, okay. So everybody has to say what they bought at the market. So I went to the market and I bought some apples. And then the next person will say, I went to the market and I bought some apples and some onions. And then the next person says, I went to the market and I bought some apples and some onions and bread. And then the next person adds something on. And you're supposed to try and remember. So it's a concentration game, a memory game. So I'll start. I went to the market and I bought some apples. Soumya, your go.
I went to the market and I bought some apples and buns.
And buns. Abhinandan, you're next.
I went to the market and I bought some apples and buns and a bottle of jam.
Okay. Manjari, you're next.
I went to the market and bought some apples and buns and a bottle of jam and some cherries.
And some cherries. Lovely. So you understand how the game is played. And you can play it in a basic way, just changing what it is the children are buying. If they are young, if you want to test their vocabulary, you could say, well, just do food, or do food and drink, or we'll do anything you can buy at the market. So a new sari. And if you want to make it a little bit easier, don't make them remember, because that gets very hard. So don't insist that they remember. But there's lots of other things that we can do with this. So I'd like to have a go now. We won't worry about repeating and remembering, but I want to use these phrases. So some, a loaf of, 2 or 3 of, a kilo of, 4 bottles of, a tin of, a packet of, a jar of, a sack of, a slice of, because we want to use it to practice these structures. So I'll start. I went to the market and I bought a litre of milk. Manjari, would you like to go next?
Okay, I went to the market and bought a liter of milk and 2 packets of biscuits.
Okay, great. Abhinandan, you go next.
I went to the market and I bought some apples. I went to the market and bought a liter of milk and 2 packets of biscuits and 3 boxes of mangoes.
Soumya, your go.
Okay. I went to the market and I bought a liter of milk, 2 packets of biscuits, 3 boxes of mangoes, and a loaf of bread.
Great. Anuj, would you like a go?
Yeah, right. But I thought we don't have to remember all these things. Can I just
you
simply?
don't have to. Don't worry
Thank
about
you.
remembering. Add something
Thank you.
different.
Thank you. I went to the market and I bought 5 tins of canned tomatoes.
Brilliant. So we can use this game to be testing different types of vocabulary structures that we've taught. We can even use it to change the tense. So I am going to the market and I will buy, to get children repeating the future tense. There's a value to the repetition. You will have bright students in your class who will be very good at this kind of game, and they won't have any problem. If you've got students who are struggling with simple things like past tense or simple things like future tense, then you can use that repetition in a very advantageous way to get those students to practice. And you might start with a really strong student. So I might say, Abhinandan, I know you're really, I'd be thinking, I know you're really good. So I want you to do, I am going to the market and I will buy. I want you to start because you've got it, you know. And then those students who are not so comfortable with English, get them to follow and copy. So you can see I'm going to the market and I will buy is a simple repetition of I will buy. Simple repetition and revision of that future tense structure. We can use it to practice negatives. I'm going to the market tomorrow, but I won't buy. Or I went to the market yesterday, but I didn't buy. And these negative structures, practicing it, playing it with these negative structures is a great way of practicing some after negatives, any instead of some after negatives. We all used, I'm going to the market and I bought some apple. Put that into the negative and it becomes, I went to the market yesterday, but I didn't buy any apples.
Right.
So that subtle difference between some and any, which lots of students struggle with, we can practice that in a little speaking game like this. So it's a game that, yes, you can play in its straightforward way with simple vocabulary practice and simple past tense practice and repetition of I went and I bought. Or we can say, let's make it a bit more restrictive and we'll practice specific types of vocabulary or specific structures. We can put it into the future tense. We can put it into the past tense, we can keep it in the past tense or the future or the present, and we can have it in the negative as well to practice different structures. Lots of different ways we can use this. Okay, so I'm going to finish with a game called My Teacher's Cat, which is based on a Scottish game, The Minister's Cat. And if you've been to some of my workshops, some of you will have played this. This is a really fabulous game for concentration skills, speaking skills, listening skills, sentence structure and vocabulary. It's really got it all. So the basic rules are very simple. You do not have to remember what went before. You just have to come up with a new adjective to describe the cat. But players have to go in alphabetical order, which means they've got to listen to the children or the players going before them. You have to speak in the form of a full sentence. Do not accept my teacher's cat is cute. That's not what we want. We want my teacher's cat is a cute cat. Otherwise, we're not practicing the use of and an before different vowels and consonant sounds. And we want children to use very before the adjective. So this is a really nice game because it's testing lots and lots of things. And again, you might let stronger students or stronger players go first. If you want to keep it a little bit easier, you can go in strict order around the class based on where children are seated. So you might start with one table and one child and go around all of the children on that table or in that row. Children then have an idea, they can work out where they're coming and think a little bit before you get to them. If you want to make it harder and much more testing, then dot about the class and just pick on children so they've got no idea where they're going to come. Right, let's have a go. I'm also going to do a little bit of pre-teaching because obviously this game is only good if children know lots and lots of adjectives. So you might want to pre-teach some adjectives, and in particular you might want to pre-teach or write up on the board some adjectives for the tricky letters X and Z. We don't have many words in English that start with X and Z. So you might want to give them some options. Okay, let's have a go. I'll start. My teacher's cat is an agile cat. Manjari, your go. Okay, Anuj, your go.
My teacher's cat is a beautiful cat.
Lovely. Soumya, your go.
My teacher's cat is a clever cat.
Abhinandan, your go.
My teacher's cat is a dandy cat.
Nagma, your go. Nagma, your go.
We have Manjari.
Manjari, your go.
Yeah, my teacher's cat is an edgy cat or an energetic cat.
Lovely, thank you. Rageshri, your go. Oh, don't worry if you're not unmuted. Anuj, your go.
Can I?
Yeah, go.
May I, ma'am? May I?
Sorry, I'm sorry. We seem to have got some technical issues here. Anuj,
Right.
your go. Can you tell me
Yes.
what's the next
My
one
teacher's
is?
cat is a fishy cat.
Fishy cat. Lovely. Okay. Payal, your go.
My teacher's cat is a gorgeous cat.
Lovely. Manjari, back to you.
My teacher's cat is a haughty cat.
Okay, lovely. Abhinandan, back to you.
Lovely.
My teacher's cat is an itchy cat.
An itchy cat. Anuj, back to you.
My teacher's cat is a jealous cat.
Lovely. Soumya, your go.
My teacher's cat is a kleptomaniac cat.
Okay. So you see how this works. You have to be thinking. You've got to be thinking in English. You've got to be quite quick in your thinking and quick on your toes. Everybody played very, very well, very well behaved way. Everybody used the full sentence structure properly. This is all of the things that we're testing and practicing and revising when we play this silly little game. Alphabetical order, vocabulary skill, adjectives, speaking in sentences. Again, teachers often say to me, my kids don't speak. They only speak odd words. This is a silly little game. If they play properly, they're speaking in sentences, as with, I went to the market and I bought, as with the noughts and crosses game with only the numbers in the squares. They've got to listen to the other players in the group and they've got to concentrate, and concentration skills are really valuable for exams for every subject, not just English. They're thinking in English and they're practicing this little point of grammar, the use of before consonants and an before vowels and vowel sounds. Okay. There are, of course, also spelling games and a range of spelling competitions. So there are lots of spelling games that we can play, as well as anagrams. If you have time and space, I have played spelling games with children in a playground where they've actually been doing more running around than spelling, but so they've perceived it as being a running around game, a race, where it's actually been a spelling game. And what we did was I put pieces of paper with an anagram, one anagram on each piece of paper, in a bucket. We had the children lined up in teams, and they had to run from where their team home was to the bucket, pick out a word, decipher it, give it to me, and I was standing at the top, tell me what the word was, give me that word, and then run back to their team, hand over to the next player, who would then run up, pick out the next word. And we played it running, and we played it hopping. And the children were really excited because they were running around and they were racing, but we were also practicing some spelling. So there are ways of doing spelling games, if you have the space and the time and the opportunity, where we're actually getting children to blow off some physical steam as well, and that can make them more fun. And of course, there are lots of spelling bee competitions as well, some online. I believe, is it Mother Dairy in India who run a spelling bee competition? Lots and lots of spelling bee competitions, and you can set them up in the school as well, of course. And of course, there is this game, which is the spelling game par excellence. So Scrabble is a great game for learning vocabulary as well as practicing spelling. And of course, Scrabble has got more. It's also got arithmetic skills, because you have to be quite quick with your mental arithmetic to tot up the score that your word is going to win you. And it's also good for spatial awareness when you start to play some of these kids play at a really high level. When you start to think about, what am I going to play where? Would that open up a triple letter score or a triple word score for my competitor? The last thing you want to do is play a word that takes a simple plural with an S at the end, or where you can put a nice verb ending on the end. You don't want to be playing that if it's next to a triple word score, because that would give your opponent an opportunity to score a really, really high word from what you've played. So it also brings in strategy and thinking skills and analytical skills. So while we think of it as a game, and while we think of it as a spelling game and a game about words, it has got a lot of strategy involved that really gets children thinking. The best Scrabble players in the world are all IT specialists or mathematicians. So it's really interesting that it's that rather than people who are good at language. So that's where I'd like to stop. Does anyone have any questions or any games that they play that they'd like to share with us? If we were doing this in a workshop, we'd also be sharing ideas and playing other games.
So I don't know whether these are played in the workshops or not, but we would play that as a student. It's a game called Name, Place, Animal, and Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because then what happens is you become oriented. Yeah, you become oriented with words from a letter. So if you choose the letter A, and you've got to name all these 4 different types of nouns, and the ones who get points are the ones who do not have the similar type kind of noun. So you can't always write P for parrot. You've got to write some other bird or some other animal.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I've played that as well. That's a good game. Yep, that's a good game. And that, of course, also brings in general knowledge, which is, you know, an important subject in India, and you have lots of general knowledge quizzes and competitions. Yep, that's a good one too. I've also played spelling games.
I play games where I do.
Yes, go on.
Dr. Elaine?
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was going
games
to say,
like word association and
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've played spelling games in playgrounds, or a mix of games in playgrounds, where it does take time to set up, where you would maybe have, table 1 has got anagrams on for the children to decipher before they can go on to table 2. And then table 2 maybe has a set of verbs, and they have to use the verb in a sentence, and they have to do that before they then go on to table 3. Table 3, maybe they have to give me an uncountable noun and use it in a sentence. Table 4, they then go on and they have to fill in a word in a blank. Table 5, they go on and they've maybe got something else to do with spelling or maths. So there's lots of different ways you can set things up. It doesn't always have to be in the classroom. I've tried to focus on more classroom friendly today, because I know that within an Indian context, you might not be able to get your children out into a playground to play spelling games. And that if parents hear you doing that, they might think, what are we paying for? So I've focused more on classroom context. But there's lots of things you can do.
Yes, one game that I really love to play with my children in school is Hangman, and children really love to figure out the spelling, and then they take their turns to identify the spellings of difficult words from easy to simple and complicated ones. So Hangman is also a very good game.
I agree that the theory and principle of the game is good, but I would encourage people to think about an alternative drawing and an alternative name.
Yes, absolutely.
I often play with a cake that's divided into, 12 slices, and every time you get a word wrong, a slice of cake is eaten. So you've got to try and complete it before all of the cake is eaten.
Dr.
So I would
Elaine,
really urge an alternative to the Hangman version, but the principle is great. I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, I think dumb charades for words, wherein you divide the students in small groups, and one student from a group comes and enacts that word, and then the rest of the class has to figure out what the word is.
Yes,
that could be a slightly playful activity.
Absolutely,
to be done in the classroom.
And absolutely, and I've also done games that need a bit of preparation in advance.
Yes,
children maybe have a card and something written on their card. I've done this with some and any.
Okay.
So they've got a sentence on their card with a missing word, and the missing word is either some or any, and they've got to go round and find a friend who's got a card that's got any or some on it.
Okay.
So there's lots of things you can do with cards where children have to find their friend or their matching pair, but that all takes a little bit more preparation and forethought.
Yes. Also for
Dr. Elaine, you were mentioning about games outside of the classroom, and I think here also in India, I as well as many other teachers have been doing that, where we take them out to the playground, or we take them to the music room, or to the library, or even we take them on a gallery walk, where they are supposed to collect, say, different words that they come across, and come back with a list of words, and then we discuss them in class. We've been doing those as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, so Dr. Elaine, we also have another game over here, like say 20 questions. So it's like you think of a word that other students should also be able to guess, and then you give them a couple of hints, and then you allow them to ask 20 questions. It could be a pair activity, or in the classroom involve all the students and engage them. So if they can guess the word in the 20 questions, then they win. And if they cannot guess the word in 20 questions, so it's prompting the learners to speak. Say, for example, if I just take the word, say a country, Egypt, and this is the word that the learner is supposed to be guessing. It's a class activity. So I pitch another learner against learner A, and then he will ask a question or maybe a sentence. Say, it's a very old country. It has a lot of history. So like this, there are 20 statements that will be made, which will prompt the other person to identify the name or the word. So it could be a wonderful word game as well, and it's also prompting and engaging the learners to enhance their speaking skills. So their thinking, their prior knowledge is also brought into action over here, and then they are setting the ball rolling over there. helping the entire class. It's like peer learning as well.
Absolutely. Yes. No, definitely. Definitely. Are there any questions?
Hi, Elaine.
Ma'am, can we also talk about games that students can play using their devices? Nowadays, students, we permit them to use their mobile phones, of course, under supervision. So we use word cloud, and we have anagrams online, and they're quite interesting. What is your suggestion about those, ma'am?
I think they're fine. I think if students have got access to good word games online and good games and activities online, I think that's fine. I mean, you know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Here's my favorite.
Oh,
you know?
Yes.
Wow, wow.
Scrabble. Online Scrabble is fantastic.
You can. No, my family won't play with me because I looked after the Scrabble dictionaries for several years. So I can recite 2-letter words that nobody knows the meaning of that are very useful in Scrabble. My family won't play with me, so I play against myself using my iPad. And also, you know, some of the UK newspapers have some very good word games in them. Let me see if I can find one. So this is the Times. Let me reset. So the Times has games like this, where you've got to find words within those letters, and you've got to find the long word that all of those letters make up. So there's lots available online that is good. Absolutely. I would encourage it, particularly if children are preparing for the Scrabble competition, and Collins India's run Scrabble competitions. I think we've got the winners from 2020 and from 2019. If they're preparing for this competition, then the app is very, very useful.
Absolutely. I think we did a very, the national championship this year, and from 14 cities. So it was a grand success and people really loved it. So we had approximately 3,000 schools participating, which was really great.
Yeah, really great. Yeah.
So Elaine, we do have a few questions.
Yes.
But before that, I mean, is it possible? I don't know, you must be hard pressed for time, but I also wanted to check with you because we had a technical glitch at the beginning of the session.
Mm-hmm.
So many people were waiting for the session to begin on Facebook. So is it possible to just quickly run them through the first 2 games that you discussed so that, they can, they don't feel left out?
No, that's absolutely fine. Where do you want me to start from, Rajeshri?
I mean, first, at the beginning of the session, and maybe the 2 games that you discussed at the beginning. Yeah, the noughts and crosses and tic-tac-toe. Noughts and crosses and tic-tac-toe are the same, and one after this, yes.
So do you want me to do the anagrams?
Yes. Because that is what they missed, the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell me when to stop.
Sure.
So we talked at the beginning about anagrams, and we did some warm-ups. These words are Saturday, tablet, and water. And we talked about how anagrams, which is a simple little game, is good for revising vocabulary sets and for checking spelling. You can play against the clock, see who can unravel the anagrams fastest, play in teams. And also, anagrams don't have to be kept only for young children with simple words. They can also be used with more challenging vocabulary with children and students in higher grades. And we looked a little bit at this example. So this is Words for Feelings, which is from Collins Junior Illustrated Dictionary. That's a set of vocabulary items that a teacher typically might teach a child and say, let's look at this and let's describe when you're feeling angry or not very happy about something. Maybe you're cross with someone. When you're feeling bored, you don't know what to do, you're not very interested. when you're feeling happy, etc., etc. And then you can turn this into a little anagram game, perhaps at the beginning of a lesson a couple of days later, to see if children have remembered the words, if they can spell them, if they can decipher them and unravel them. You can play at a much higher level. This is a version where students have to not only unravel the words, and the words are lean, skinny, willowy, slight, slender, bony, thin, spare, and gaunt, but they then have to think which ones have positive connotations, which ones have negative connotations, and which ones are neutral, because we know in English there are no true synonyms. So we've maybe taught our students some alternative words for slim. We've maybe talked with them about the connotations and looked at them, some example sentences from our very good Co-Bill dictionary that we're all using. And then we maybe think, right, I'm going to just see how much they've remembered from that lesson last week. And we give them this little game to do. They maybe do it in pairs or in a group. And the ones that are positive are words like willowy and slight and slender. That's all very positive. If you describe a young lady as willowy, that's a very flattering thing. Some are negative, bony and gaunt are negative, and some are more neutral. So we might think that thin is neutral. So we can make it harder. This is maths vocabulary, so we can help reinforce vocabulary for key subjects in school. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, second, last, and first. So the children decipher those, and then we can turn it into a completely different game and say, right, now put them in alphabetical order. Alphabetical order games give children words. These are all words to do with colour, to see who can do it first, who's fastest. Don't forget that with alphabetical order, it's also sometimes about the second letter. We've got to look at the second letter in this version, and in the third letter in this version. But they're racing. They're perhaps racing against their friend sitting next to them, or they're maybe trying to do it in groups, but they're practicing alphabetical order. If you had time to prepare, instead of writing the words on the board, you could write them on pieces of card, give the children pieces of card, get them to put the cards in alphabetical order. Noughts and crosses is a great game for testing bits of understanding of grammar and vocabulary and usage. And we know the aim of the game is to get your nought or your cross in a straight line. So the winner here is the cross, who's got all the crosses in a nice diagonal line. And the way that we can use this to test language, you can play it, divide the whole group, the whole class into 2 teams, but that's noisy, or play on paper. But the way you can use this game to test language is like this. So this is revising the order of the alphabet. Let's say we're playing Elaine against Jeremy. So Elaine's going to go first. I want to go in the middle. I'm going to pick the letter I. The letter that comes after that is J. So they have to give you the letter that comes after it to win their nought or cross. And then the winner is the child or the team who gets a straight line. This one is to practice irregular plurals. So to get the nought or the cross, the child has to give you the plural. So mouse, the plural is mice. And we can make this a little bit more challenging by saying, great, now use it in a sentence. I saw some mice in the garden. So they have to then use the plural form in the sentence. So you're making it a little bit harder for them. So you can keep it simple, or you can make it more challenging. You can make it harder still, or bring in more speaking skills rather, by not putting the word into the grid. So you can see here, if you want to go in the middle, you've got to give me the plural of woman. Here, you can say, right, I want to go in square number 1. So the children have to ask you in English, I'd like to go in square 1, please, ma'am. And then tell you the word they want to play with. I'd like to play with the word take, and then do what you want them to do, which in this case is give you the past tense. So took. The past tense of take is took. So we can get them speaking, but they're playing a game and they're thinking more about past tenses, but we're trying to get them speaking. We're trying to encourage some spontaneity of speech. This version, children need to tell you what the part of speech of the word is. Some words, like pretty, of course, can have more than one part of speech. Pretty can be an adjective, and it can also be a verb, as in, I need to pretty up the house, or I need to pretty up my garden. So get them to use it in a sentence, in a full sentence, to show that they know how it's used, as well as being able to tell you what part of speech it is. You can leave it completely open, and they can give you any answer at all. So this might work if it's a fairly closed vocabulary set. So colour, any colour at all can be played with this version of the game. So children might say, competitor might say, I want to go for number 9 and my word is indigo. They might give you a more complex word for blue than just blue. So there are lots of different ways of using this game. In this case, we're looking at verb structures. We want children to use the verb in a sentence, but to use it transitively. So I went to the market and I bought sweets. I stayed at home at the weekend and I baked a cake. I like to write stories. Write, of course, can be intransitively, but in this case, we want the children to use it transitively. So there's lots of different ways we can use this seemingly simple little game to get students practicing things we may have taught them or things we want them to revise. And this version is using structures such as cup of, slice of, bottle of, piece of, which, as I think I said earlier, I find a lot of confusion about these structures in India. So good to get them practicing in a fairly non-confrontational and seemingly easy way, but they are practicing some of these structures. And then we can also use it for practicing collocations and vocabulary. So what goes with dioxide? Well, carbon goes with dioxide. What goes with vapor? Well, water goes with vapor. What goes with fuel? Fossil fuel, solar radiation, greenhouse effect. So you can get children to find the pair, the collocate that goes with the word in the grid. So lots of different ways of using this game. Is that okay, Rageshri, or do you want me to carry on?
No, yes, I think we are good.
Brilliant.
So,
No problem.
Yes.
No
Thank you
problem.
so much. Thank you. I think people were really interested and they were a bit disappointed that they couldn't attend the session in full, but thank you for the recap. And we
No
will be
problem.
sharing the recording in any case with all of them. So
excellent.
Thank you. So there are a couple of questions. Some
Yes.
people want to know if there are any particular games you would like to suggest for grades like 1 and 2, which is early primary. So are there some games in particular that they can play to enhance vocabulary?
I like doing anagram games with children who are in grades 1 and 2, but I would probably prepare the materials beforehand. So I would probably have, well, I have a Scrabble set. Mm-hmm. So if you have a Scrabble set, you can use the tiles from the Scrabble set to give children the letters to use to form a word. So you might give a child in grade 1 or grade 2, let's say we've been teaching them about numbers. So you might give a child the letters E, N, and O from the Scrabble set and say, make a word, and they have to make the word 1. So I would, because they're young and they can't concentrate as much, I would get them manipulating things while they're also thinking about unraveling the letters and trying to work out what the word is. So either give them the tiles from your Scrabble set, if you have that as an option, or make up little letter cards to make it a more tactile version of the game. And then you can add in, so you say, right, here are your Scrabble tiles, E, N, and O. can you make a word? And they then make the word. And then you can ask them to write the word, so that they're also then bringing in not only unraveling the word and looking at the word, but writing the word. And that's particularly valuable with grades 1 and grade 2 when you're introducing, maybe you've introduced some new vocabulary, some words which will be unfamiliar to them. So let's say on the Monday, you've introduced your grade 1s to the numbers 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And you've taught them the numbers, and you know they've been doing that in maths. But the first time you play a game with them, you might give them the Scrabble tiles or your letter cards. You might also then say, right, now write the word, so that you're really consolidating their learning. So as well as looking and understanding and unraveling, they're writing themselves so that they take more ownership of the word. It's been estimated that we need to encounter and use a new word 7 times before it becomes an active part of our vocabulary. So we can extend the game in that way to become an active part of the vocabulary. And also with little children, with children in grades 1 and grade 2, if you can get them into the class, out of the classroom, to maybe do a little bit of moving around from place to place while they're playing games, I think that's very beneficial. So I think the anagram game is good, and the noughts and crosses game is good as well for little children.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing those details. And there is one question for the senior classes: how to teach them tenses using games for classes 9 and 10, and higher up, senior secondary. So for tenses.
Tenses.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking how to teach them tenses. Well, I would give them a sentence and get them to rewrite it using a different tense. So let me see if I can find something here that might be adaptable. So yeah, I think it's quite hard to teach tenses. I would tend to say, let's take a sentence like, at the weekend, I help my mother. So we say so let's put the children into groups of 4. So the first child has to come up with the first child has to come up with a sentence in the present tense. At the weekend, I helped my mother. Then the next child has to give that in the past tense. At the weekend, I helped my mother. Then the next child has to give it in the future tense. So they have to change not only, so at the weekend, I will help my mother, and then maybe put it into the present continuous. At the weekend, I am helping my mother, or I will be helping my mother, or I was helping my mother. But you might then need to add in extra things because some of those sentences are not complete sentences. I'll have to give that some thought and give it a think, give it some more thought. It would be really helpful to know what's motivating that question. What's the problem? What's the problem children have with tenses? And is it tenses or is it reported speech?
Okay.
So whoever asked that, can you give me a bit more information using the chat box, and I will have a think about what we could do.
Sure, we will take the feedback and we will share it with you.
Brilliant.
And maybe so that would be I think we can consolidate it, all the questions, and we can share those with you.
Great.
There's one more question about active and passive voice. So are there any tips that you would like to share for teaching active and passive voice?
I think it comes down to lots of practice.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in India, lots of teachers are very keen on these sentences where you have a sentence written in the active voice and then you have to change it to the passive voice. I'm less keen on that. I don't think that's not very functional. That's a very rigid way of teaching, and we might end up with language which sounds very contrived. I would make it a lot more functional, and I would look at taking, I would find a good piece of writing, maybe from a popular novel or a novel that children have read and enjoyed, or maybe something from Harry Potter. Find a short section from there and ask children to rewrite it. If it's in the passive voice in Harry Potter, rewrite it in an active voice. If it's in an active voice in Harry Potter, rewrite it in a passive voice.
Okay.
So I would be more inclined to take a short, small piece of writing that children are familiar with and that you know they're going to be interested in and engage with, and get them to rewrite it, changing the voice, rather than doing lots of these sentence transfer exercises.
Okay. I think we have time for only these many questions at the moment, because the other questions we will gather and we will share those with you, Elaine, because we have been getting quite a few, and our time is limited. We have already overshot the time. So thank you so much for this wonderful session. We have got a lot of response on Facebook as well as on Zoom. They have really enjoyed the session. So thank you, participants, as well. And we are really sorry about the glitch that happened at the beginning, but we will be sharing the recorded session with all of you. So you can, ask your questions after that, and we will pass it on to Elaine for, helping us with those questions. So thank you so much, Elaine. Another wonderful session. So thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye.
Yes, thank you very much.